Welcome to Autism Unmasked, the podcast that unravels the complexity of autism and brings you closer to understanding it. Now, before we get to unmasking autism, let me introduce myself. I am Gianna Magadia, a multimedia arts student from De La Salle College of St. Benilde, and I'm your host for Autism Unmasked. Our guest for today is a student from De La Salle University. He was diagnosed with Asperger's and ADHD at the age of 7. However, he hasn't received the final diagnosis of ASD until now. For today's episode, he will share with us his journey with autism as a student, his experiences throughout these years, and how he has evolved since.
Hello. Hello. Hi, everyone. Okay. I actually just want to make a disclaimer. Actually, it's considered these days that Asperger's is part of ASD now. So technically, I am formally diagnosed with autism or mild autism.
Oh yeah. So I
Mhm.
just included that in your background just so they know na when you were diagnosed at age of 7, it was called Asperger's. So I know I already introduced you to everyone earlier, but can you share also just a little bit more about yourself?
All right. So, hi, guys. I'm currently on my fourth year taking computer science in De La Salle University, Manila. Actually, like doing various things on the side, like gaming, programming, cooking, exercising, and so on. So, yeah, that's a little something about me.
Okay, that's nice. Maybe we could head on to the topic. As we all know, autism is a very serious topic, no? Many are unaware of what the condition is. They usually know only a fraction of it or aware of the stereotype that come with the condition, but not really the full picture of what it is. We believe the best way to understand it is to really have someone who has a closer and a more direct perspective. How would you describe autism in your own words?
I've actually been thinking about it, and from what I think, autism is a difference of mindset that starts with people since the day of their births. And it leads to a wide range of effects, such as inability to properly understand people's feelings, development of social anxiety, feeling that the world is too complicated for them, difference in understanding people, unable to keep up with
Mhm.
what they're trying to communicate, very limited interests,
Oh,
a wide
okay.
range of effects.
From the outside looking in, oftentimes people speculate what it feels like to have autism, and many only just guess how it feels like. But to make it clearer for us, siguro, what exactly does having autism entail for you? Like, can you explain a normal day in your life? For example, how it affects your everyday activities?
Like in terms of my own day-to-day life, if I had one word to describe it, it would be pretty blissful. Like I just wake up, play games, I study a little bit of something, and then I go back to sleep. I mentioned earlier that, or did I, that
Mm-hmm.
people with autism are more used to a more repetitive lifestyle because they feel like any change in their daily routine is complicated. It's too much for them.
Mm-hmm.
I am living proof of that 100%. My days are pretty much the same thing. And then there is the social life aspect to people with autism like me. Occasionally, I would be talking with other people, but more often than not, I'd rather keep to myself.
Other than that naman, do you experience sensory sensitivities or something along those lines?
Actually, I do. I was actually just reading a while ago that for people with autism, more often than not, when they communicate with people, the topic really just revolves around themselves. And I look to myself and say, that's pretty true. I also think like that, when like, because I'm unable to understand or I'm disinterested with what others are talking about, more often than not, I spin the conversation to be about
Mm.
myself. So yeah, it's just a trait that people with autism have.
Oh, okay. Moving on naman, in media, we've been taught not to say autistic people. Instead, we are encouraged naman to say people with autism. What are your thoughts about it?
Well, saying the term autistic people for me really just has a negative connotation because society makes it so that it has a negative connotation. They'd rather be more socially acceptable,
Yeah.
I think, or like accepting or inclusive. So they'd rather say people with autism. For me, I didn't really care up until you brought this up with me the last time. I think I do see their point when like saying people with autism is more proper than saying autistic people. Hence why I've been saying people with autism since a while ago.
Yeah. So as far
Mhm.
as I know, the motivation behind this is that people wish to separate the condition from the person. That's why they say people with autism. It really all depends on the individual, right? So it's what you prefer talaga to be called.
Yeah, we want to separate the people from the mental condition. So when you say autistic people, it's like you're trying to brand these people. You're trying to other, I wouldn't say exoticize, but somewhere within those lines. You're trying
Mm-hmm.
to brand them more as nothing more than embodiment of autism. Whereas if you say people with autism, you do acknowledge that they are people at the end of the day, just with this disorder.
Yeah, that's a really
Mhm.
nice point, no? Let's talk more about you
Mhm.
naman. So, what kind of extracurricular activities do you have? I'm sure you have activities that you use to help you get through the day, be sports, organizations, hanging out with friends. Yeah, maybe you could share your experiences with that.
My extracurricular activities evolved over the years, but currently it involves exercising, cooking, and literally just wasting my hours on some documentary or some article,
Mhm.
satisfying my thirst for knowledge. It really differs over time. Occasionally, I would like to go out of the house, have lunch or dinner somewhere along with my family. It really varies. Before, I would also do things such as biking and drumming, more physical activities, but I haven't been doing that lately.
Oh, okay. So you mentioned earlier, no, na you have a specific routine. So is this something that you do on a rotation?
I'm trying to keep it as a superset thing, but in reality, it just rotates. It just because as a fourth year college student, anything could happen to me at this point. A lot of academic activities can just pop up out of nowhere, which disrupts my schedule. I end up having to loosen on my daily routines. I haven't been exercising for a month now because towards the end of last term, I was just pumped with academic activities. So yeah, as much as I wanted to be set in stone, I just really can't.
Other than that naman, what have been some of the challenges you have faced in doing extracurricular activities aside from what you mentioned earlier?
I think it just boils down to sheer willpower, sheer determination to do so, and also getting used to not doing it anymore. I've had like a lot of instances where I just end up not doing my daily routines anymore, and then I find it hard to get back to it. It takes me like months to do so. This is also a similar story for my interests. They shift over time, and it's hard to get back to them.
Is it because of time or is it something na motivation
It's more
to
motivation
begin?
based. For
Yeah.
example, I try to make it a habit to read like 5 to 10 pages of a book every day before. I still haven't gotten back to it.
Since you mentioned earlier na your activities consist of biking, reading,
Mm.
exercising, how do you think these activities helped you grow as an individual, especially as someone with autism?
Essentially, it gains me more traits. People would say, "Oh, I'm autistic. I'm someone with Asperger's. What are the positive things about them, though?" So yeah, I do consider them my fallbacks, but also mainly because they make me into a more well-rounded person. Like it's always nice to self-improve, to improve yourself physically, mentally, spiritually, and even emotionally. Essentially, it makes me a more well-rounded person, and also
Yeah.
because I see them as necessary for my future.
Oh, yeah. So, since you were diagnosed with autism, did you ever encounter any struggles with your social life? Was there ever an instance wherein you felt as if your condition hindered you from connecting with people?
Yes, very, 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 very much yes. People just have differing interests. They find it difficult to communicate with other people, understand their emotions, their language that they're trying to portray. I can tell
Mm.
you right now, all of those stuff manifests in my social life.
What approaches naman do you believe helped you communicate more effectively with them?
I think honestly, at this point, I've just learned to be myself around them
Mm.
because I've realized that no matter how hard I try to conceal it, it will come out to the people I interact with socially that I have Asperger's. It's gonna show on their face. So might as well come clean about it and show them myself. And then it's up to them whether they decide to accept me or not.
So, since you mentioned that naman, why do you think neurotypical people have a hard time understanding neurodivergent people like you?
It's really just a matter of human instinct for me. Like
Mhm.
people tend to be indifferent to things that are different to them, right? It's just a human trait. For me, it's a matter of indifference.
Yeah,
People
and
can sympathize with you all they want, but they can never empathize with you. And to be honest, I don't blame them. They're not the ones who were born with Asperger's. They can never really know for sure what I need or don't need, what helps me or not.
yeah. So we can continue on the next topic naman, which is coping with ASD.
Mm.
What strategies do you use to reduce anxiety or stress in difficult situations naman?
First and foremost, go into the difficult situations. A lot of people with Asperger's, and even I felt this way before. My first instinct is to avoid them, to hide away from them. Make sure I
Mhm.
always try to dodge it, but at one point, you just have to tell ourselves, just do it already. Learn, gain the experience, live
Yes.
and breathe it like clockwork, and it'll drone on you. You'll get better at it. And another thing I want to mention is the use of fallbacks. Okay, this guy has Asperger's. What are the positive things about him though? What are his strengths though?
For someone who's been dealing with ASD, how have you learned naman to adapt to the demands of life with ASD?
First off, I want to thank my early treatment. I want to thank the fact that I was treated at a very young age. Because I
Mhm.
know for a fact that these symptoms develop at a young age, and if left untreated, then they're stuck with it forever. So yeah, I'm just glad I was able to get proper treatment. For my early years as a child, up to my early teens, it really helped me stave it off a little bit, stave off the effects.
How do you think naman your experiences with ASD shaped you into the person you are today?
I'm gonna be honest with you. Yes, ASD has loads of drawbacks with it, and it's generally something negative. And I can vouch for that. I can assure you about that as someone who lived it my whole life. It does give me some positive effects at least. I think the biggest one there would be I'm a more optimistic person. I'm a person who's better capable of seeing things for what they are. Consider it outsider's perspective. I'm able to view society within a different lens and get a clear picture than other people can. Because I want to mention that I am a very optimistic person. I am a very observant person. Actually, one of my traits is calling things out for what they are. I did read up that people with autism tend to say things, tend to speak their mind,
Mhm.
regardless of how rude it is.
Yeah.
So I think I can use that also as a strength to help people realize their thoughts and improve themselves. Mhm.
Given that you still have your entire life ahead of you, how do you believe people can better help you in your day to day activities in the future?
I guess it would be to try to understand me better. Like I did mention earlier, that people will never truly understand me well, but they can at least try to. I just hope for them to understand my condition so that they really understand why I live this kind of life. And maybe I would also ask them to not try to stigmatize people with ASD. I would encourage them to think of them as, people with their own differences rather
Yeah.
than people who are lower.
Okay, so we are actually nearing the end, and this will be the last question. Do you have any advice for people who are just getting started with ASD? They got like diagnosed late or they just knew na they
Mm.
have ASD.
My advice for them is that they can turn things around in their favor, but it will require sheer will effort. And above all, it requires not denying that they have an issue. Because the longer they try to deny it, the longer they prolong their treatment. I admit it. My parents admitted for me that I needed help. And to be honest, I would encourage them to just be themselves. Don't give a hoot what society thinks of them. The more they try to conceal themselves, the more they fall into the void that they're digging. I would know based on experience. I tried to act like a normal person in front of people. It put
Mm-hmm.
me in despair. Just be themselves, and it's up to society after seeing who you really are, whether they want to accept you or not. And if they don't, then that's
That's
on them.
on
That's not on
them.
you. I guess what I'm trying to say is don't try to conform to society. Don't subjugate yourself to society's pressures because it's not a good idea. Society loves to profess that these people are lower than them. I'm here to say that they're just different. They have things that are lower than other people, but they also have things that are higher. They're their own people. They have their own skills. They have their own strengths and weaknesses. They're like the rest of us.
Thank you for dedicating your time to us. You have shared great stories that not only enlightened us, but also helped us understand ASD better. To our listeners, thank you for joining us in this episode of Autism Unmasked. We hope this gave you an insight into what's it like living with autism and how you can help individuals with ASD. We look forward to being part of your journey as you learn more about autism and help those in need. If you'd like to learn more, please visit our website autismsense.info for more resources.